Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer warned Wednesday that the re-election of former President Trump would mean we failed as a country. We failed as a country, Whitmer said when asked on MSNBC's Morning Joe what a second Trump term would mean. A second Trump term would mean that we'll see rights eviscerated. Whitmer, a national co-chair of the Biden-Harris campaign, has been making the rounds in recent days to tout her support for President Biden as he faces turmoil within his own party following a shaky debate performance. Whitmer echoed a familiar Democratic message Wednesday, warning that a second Trump term would pose a risk to democracy. She pointed to the Supreme Court ruling last week that determined core presidential powers are immune from criminal prosecution. We'll see the institutions that have sustained this democracy undermined. We'll see abuse of power like we've never seen before, especially with the newest Supreme Court ruling, she said. And so I think about my daughters in the way that I know you think about yours. This is a high stakes moment, and their generation is important to this moment, but also is counting on all of us, on us all, on this moment, she continued. Whitmer also acknowledged that Biden's debate performance was lousy while emphasizing that he can beat Trump in November. But the fact of the matter is, the president is, I think, showing that he is up to the moment, up to the job, up to the rigors. He's speaking with NATO. He's touring the country. He'll be in Michigan this week, she said. He's in it to win it. And I have been a longtime supporter of this president and vice president. That's not changed, she added. Biden has maintained that he will not drop out of the race despite mounting calls from Democrats, including sitting lawmakers, for him to do so. Whitmer has been a top name floated to replace Biden on the Democratic ticket should he end his reelection campaign, but she has said she doesn't like being mentioned in that context and called it a distraction more than anything. When asked Wednesday if voters are hoping for an alternative to Biden, she reiterated that there are only two choices. Well, let's be clear. This is not fantasy football. We're not clearing the slate and everyone's picking who they think could be potential candidates. We have a choice between Joe Biden and Donald Trump, she said. I don't think I've ever done a story on Whitmer, at least not one in recent times. I know I talked about her when she was mentioned as one of Biden's potential VP picks back in 2020. Um, we failed as a country, is what a second Trump term would mean. So the thing about political parties is that they're obviously, in almost every instance, completely opposed to the agenda of the other one, right? So the Democrats be against the Republicans' message and vice versa. But the Democrats are the failures if Trump is able to get a second term, because it's the Democrats' job as the opposing party to convince us of why the Republicans are not the ones who should be in office. Us is meaning the voters. And I'm really getting sick and tired of seeing people, regular people, blamed for the electoral failures of politicians. You know, I remember when Hillary lost back in 2016, and you had all of these individuals. Well, Trump was able to win because of Bernie Bros, and people were posting stuff about Hillary on social media, and James Comey came out with. I mean, it didn't end. They just kept looking for things to blame, except the candidate herself, the one who lost to the game show host. It's sad that they're looking at a man who she acknowledges had a lousy debate performance and not willing to acknowledge that if he fails in his attempt to beat Trump, which many people are starting to think he might get out of the race before the convention or during the convention, and if the Democrats, period, are just not able to defeat the Republicans, whether it's for the White House, for the Senate, for the House of Representatives, just whichever chamber of Congress or position you're talking about, that's on them. The country does not fail, and maybe the policies that get enacted afterward are going to be to the detriment. I mean, we can have a conversation about that, but you can't go around blaming the voters for the inability of one party to articulate the problems with that of another. You should see charismatic Obama, the now slightly more used Clinton after several years of just being, in obscurity, President Clinton, not Hillary. And they should come out along with any other popular Democrats, whether you're talking about Michelle or someone else, and campaign for Biden, explain why, even if people think he's not all the way up there, what is at stake here. But this type of message is just so obnoxious. Like, I'm not someone who has any desire to see Trump get a second non-consecutive term, become Grover Cleveland 2.0. But even as someone who's nominally on the side of the Democrats or the left or whatever, in this context of like just a person who's like left wing that is not enthusiastic about Biden, but also obviously doesn't want Trump. It's really disturbing that these are seasoned politicians. Like these are people who are governors, senators, and they actually believe they're owed your vote. Well, the other person's horrible, so of course you're going to vote for my person, right? If my person doesn't win, the whole country failed. Politicians, they can't take accountability for any of their losses. I mean, and it's sad too because one of the nice things about the U.S. is if you run for office, more often than not, you don't, and it doesn't work the first time. You can come back and run again. So you would think if these people are serious about actually trying to have a victory, they would learn from the mistakes of 2016 when Trump won initially, and try to move forward in a way. Because a lot of 2020 was people just being sick of him. Biden wasn't some amazing, great, terrific candidate. Everybody was so excited to finally see achieve his 40-year mission of taking the White House, but people just were tired of Trump. They would have voted for any Democrats. I don't think that's the case now, but they need to be able to articulate that. Of course, if Trump wins in November, we'll be hearing about how it's all of our fault and we're all a bunch of idiots, and the rest of the non-helpful, counterintuitive things that are going to help Democrats to keep losing offices for the remaining years of our supposed democracy.